draw the line somewhere.
Whoops. Okay. Shoot.
Whoops.
Neighborhood beautification. That's very important to Detroit. It's very important to block clubs, organizations, and people who live in the community. We got started with 2 lots and a vision of a treehouse center. Because if we can take these blighted lots, Detroit give us grants to be able to do something with them that the community wants, it's a plus because we're bringing our neighborhoods back to where we want them to be, where they should be. All because I live in Detroit.
Hi, I'm Eric Sabri, your Wayne County Treasurer. If you're living in the home of a deceased family member and you're facing property tax foreclosure, the probate process can be helpful to you. If you file a probate petition and notify our office, the foreclosure proceedings will be halted during the probate process. Contact us at 313-224-5990 or email us at taxinfo@waynecounty.com. We're here to help.
This is Alyssa Slotkin, Democrat running for the U.S. Senate. I want to share a story about who, more than anyone, taught me the importance of listening and accountability. It was President Barack Obama. I served in the White House on his national security staff. I got to see him in action, up close, and behind closed doors in the Oval Office. First, he was brilliant, and therefore demanded people really knew their stuff. It was President Obama who grilled me on issues and demanded accountability on what we said and did. That commitment to accountability is exactly the approach I use today, listening to our communities. It's why I've written an opportunity agenda with detailed plans to strengthen Black businesses, increase Black wealth, and provide real opportunities for our youth. Because, as President Obama taught me, you better say what you mean and mean what you say. So that's why I approve this message.
Vote early or on August 6th for Alyssa Slotkin, Democrat for U.S. Senate. Paid for by Alyssa Slotkin.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Week That Was. My name is Saeed Khan, and I know how many of you are feeling as though we may have had a leap week, because how could this much happen in just 7 days? But I assure you, it was just a regular week, at least mathematically. Well, we're joined by a great group that's going to go ahead and dissect what has happened over the last 7 days. We are joined by President of BME Consulting and former Director of Wayne County Public Services Department, Beverly Watts, Public Relations Specialist Darci McConnell, Attorney Bill Seikaly, and Attorney Joel Sklar, Labor and Community Activist Barb Ingalls, veteran journalist Nancy Derringer, and of course, co-founder of Deadline Detroit, back in the D after not just a little bit of tumult, Allan Lengel. So, we now have, I guess, what shall we call it, an LBJ moment, that President Joe Biden has said that he is withdrawing from the race, and he has left it at least ostensibly open as to whom will be the Democratic nominee. Thoughts about this? And anyone?
Oh, it's exciting. Go ahead.
Well, I definitely was melancholy about it. He's been incredible as a president. And I certainly haven't worked on so many campaigns to have that success and then not be able to be there. And then also the way it was handled was just pretty awful for someone with his history and legacy. But I thought that his speech was fantastic, particularly when he talked about letting nothing get in the way of saving our democracy, including personal ambition. I thought that was a pretty powerful statement. And also him, sort of passing the baton to Kamala. So
Darci, on that, I guess every president considers his or her legacy moving forward. How do you think this moment and the way that Biden handled it will then frame the way that he is remembered for these 4 years?
Well, like I said, I thought that speech was excellent. And I really think that he handled it better than a lot of the other folks in the party, frankly. They were leaking like a sieve. Every other day we're hearing somebody having a conversation about him getting out. So I think he handled it with grace and aplomb and did the right thing.
Yeah. All right, Beverly.
Yeah, and I totally agree. And like I said on Monday, the day after, on another news outlet. They called me for a comment, but like I said, I first.
How dare you? How dare you?
I told them never to call me again. But okay. But at first I'm just like Darci. I had, feeling melancholy because when you think about no matter where you side, where President Biden, no one really has given a lot more for this country than President Biden starting at the age of 33. We owe him a lot of gratitude. So it's not about red. It's not about blue. It's about red, white, and blue. For me, when it comes to President Biden, he sacrificed more than most. However, I turned it around and I said, you know what? For anyone who thought he was too old and maybe his faculties was fading away, if you don't think that he had some leadership in the way this was executed, I got something I can sell you. I mean, even down to the day. Now, we had heard whispers because I did go to his visit when he was here a couple of weeks ago at Renaissance High. So whispers was looming in the back that he was going to step aside. You just didn't know when. We didn't believe it at the time. But, to execute it on a Sunday, the time that he did, thankfully, I was on my way to a reception while it was already some bubbly. So we had a party already Sunday, just impromptu. But, I mean, even when you're going to have a number, that you can have women, not only minority women, but women, few hours later to dial in where you're only going to have 1,000 capacity, convenient, and then it's going to shut down, it's going to crash. And then you have donors that's already ready. So I give a lot of credit to the Democratic Party, the supporters. There were some doubters, but I also give that credit to me. In my opinion, I give it to President Biden because I think that he was the steward and the captain of how it was executed on Sunday. So kudos to him.
Bill.
Yeah, it's hard to disagree with anything they said. I'm glad it happened. I think it needed to happen. Not so much because I thought that there was anything wrong with Joe. I love Joe Biden. I think it's hard not, if you believe in what I believe, it's hard not to love Joe Biden. He's certainly become one of the most consequential presidents of our time, no matter how you feel about it. But it was time for him to step aside because no matter what the reality was, the perception of a significant portion of the population was he was too old to go into the next election. And therefore, he was very likely to lose to Donald Trump. And I believe Donald Trump is an existential threat to this country. I think that he's going to go down in history very favorably. I think he already has. It is interesting if you look at some of the analysis of presidential historians. He's already ranked in the top 14, despite how many times Trump has said he's worse than all 10 of the worst 10 presidents that have ever existed in our country. History will treat Biden, I think, very, very well. But I think that there's, I want to take some umbrage, Saeed, to your saying this was a 1968 moment. When Lyndon Johnson decided he was not going to run, it threw the Democratic Party into a state of panic and disunity. It was also a terrible political and violent time, just like today, and it resulted in Bobby Kennedy's assassination and Martin Luther King being assassinated at the same time, caused incredible disruption, not to mention the 1968 Democratic Convention in Chicago. Yeah. So I think that what happened here is in opposite to what occurred in 1968. The show of unity behind Kamala and her political deafness was breathtaking. Right. And I think that even Trump and his hero, mini-me, J.D. Vance, would have to agree with that. What finally, after all of these years, has pushed Trump off the headlines? Kamala Harris.
That's why, Bill. That's why I said LBJ, not a 1968 analogy, because I didn't mention Dubček or the Tet Offensive, because I knew you'd call me out on that, Allan.
I mean, I agree. I mean, in terms of him getting pushed out, it was sort of a death of 1,000 cuts. I mean, it was just one thing after another. I mean, early on, then suddenly Carl Bernstein goes on TV and says, look, that debate, that was not a one-off. I'm being told that's happened 15 to 20 times in the last year. And then, I think people made it impossible for him to go on. They were destroying his campaign, but he did the right thing in the end, and he was so gracious in his speech that I think it all kind of it felt like a little bit of a healing process to what was kind of a harsh thing to do, but somebody needed to take the car keys from him.
There was a national sigh of relief.
Yeah.
What happened. So now we can concentrate on just what a completely psycho nutbag Trump is.
Right.
And Vance is no better than him. And I think they've got buyer's remorse with him.
Yeah.
Don't forget older.
But grace is what's been lacking in this country.
Right.
Is Trump. And I think to show grace, which is a hell of a virtue, and not many people have it, quite frankly, is really going to mark him, I think, as a very good, if not great, president. To step down from power, to subrogate your ego to the interest of the nation, is such a patriotic thing to do. Washington refused the crown. Biden is refusing to go on, and I do think he has organic issues. I think it's best that he not be president, just for him physically and for the nation. But his showing of grace was moving. Yep. And really may have changed, at least I think that may change a tone. And you have Kamala, who was so articulate and can make the points of why the administration was the great administration that it was. She can carry that torch. I am so excited for her, and she's impressed me again. She secured her delegates within 48 hours, I believe. Mm-hmm. That's remarkable. So I think Biden, the way he left was just full of grace. Yes. I hope that carries forward for the Democrats.
Nancy, you are alarmingly quiet.
We have a video.
Oh,
real quick.
Video.
Let me just play this.
If you don't mind, I'm not going to be nice. Is that okay? I'm not. They want me to be nice.
National unity. Time of death. 6:20 p.m.
I think I've been quiet because I don't have anything really to add to what's already been said, other than random thoughts. I think you can tell how effective this change is going to be by how flat-footed the whole Republican Party was caught on Sunday. I mean, they've been flailing for 5 days now. They don't have a message. They don't have. All they have is their usual bullshit, of stupid memes, offensive, offending single women. They have nothing. And all of their ammo has been swept off the table. No more Biden crime family. No more Hunter's a crackhead. No more Joe is old. What they have is a woman, or what they're up against now is a woman whose personal situation looks a lot like the rest of the country. Right. She's she concentrated on her career. She gave up. She didn't have children. That's a choice. That's a valid choice that a lot of women have made. She married later in life to a man with his own children. So now she's a stepmother, a blended, a new kind of family. All this is, one of the memes that I see on our side is, imagine what they'd be saying about her if she had 5 children with 3 different men, which is, what Trump has. And so I feel like they'll get their shit together at some point, but it's not going to be, they've been dealt a very serious blow here.
And a husband's ex-wife who's got her back. So,
there you go.
I think his comments about it, I think they were made a while ago about her being a childless cat woman,
cat lady.
That was Vance.
Yeah, Vance said that. I think we see I see some comparison to like when Dan Quayle did the speech about Murphy Brown and attacking single moms. I think they don't realize that America is pretty diverse in so many ways, including lifestyles, and they don't get it. They think there's one template that should be followed. It's sort of the master race should be this Christian white, married, children, and it's It's scary.
Well, on one of the news outlets yesterday, one that Beverly did not appear on, so thank you, Beverly. They mentioned an interesting angle. They said that the kinds of attacks on Kamala Harris as a woman of color is actually going to now galvanize Black American men who do not take kindly to seeing a Black American woman being disparaged in that way. And so will chivalry prevail against this effort that the Republicans are making to try to court the Black vote?
Yes, I definitely think so. I mean, you look at the number, they had their own number Monday night for them to call in. And again, that system crashed at the number of minority Black men. And not only Black men, we understand it was a lot of men that tried to get in and get on that call, and they said it was wonderful. So I definitely say it goes beyond the fraternity organizations. Of course, they're on board, but it's just a phenomenon. And so I can definitely say you're definitely going to you've galvanized and energized the Black community, the Black males, but it goes beyond the Black males of what I've been hearing all week.
I'd like to point something out. I think that this issue about grace and dignity is an important one for our political state right now. And I want to point out that when Trump was shot, Biden got on television and said, there's no room, got on television right away and said, there's no room in our politics for political violence. No room for this in our country. He called Trump, and he did it with grace and dignity. And that night tried to call the family of the fireman shot. This is juxtaposed to Donald Trump, who gave about 3 seconds of a 1 hour and 32-minute acceptance speech on unity, and then devolved into mass deportations of all these criminals who've come into our country and all their kids, and we're going to get them out. And I mean, mean and nasty. And within 24 hours, some of the nastiest stuff. By the way, you know, we can talk about this a little later. There have been 2 marches now in this country of Nazis in support of Trump, none of which Trump has condemned. That kind of lack of grace is going to turn around and bite him on the rear end, where I believe that Kamala Harris's and Joe Biden's grace will serve them well.
Well, you forget to mention that the chanting was, "We love Hitler, we love Trump."
Right.
Well,
not to mention that when Trump was shot, what did the people at the Trump rally do? Anybody see that video? They turned around and gave the press.
Oh, and they
pulled the finger and were yelling "F you" into it. I mean, it is a comment about where we are, and this is not just their leaders. We've got a videotape I'm going to ask Allan to show later. I mean, this is not just the people following Trump. This is their leaders.
Right. The thing that's really disturbing to me, I'm sorry, it's really disturbing to me, is the level of sexism and straight up misogyny that they're throwing at Kamala Harris. I've heard women saying that that she slept her way to the top. The new N-word being DEI, right?
No, absolutely.
The worst, saying that she immediately called a colored sorority.
Oh, God.
And to me, the worst one, there's a term going around right now from a woman that was on a show, and it was a term for the best way to give a man oral sex. If you're lucky enough to have not heard it, it's horrible. And on Fox News, this guy looked in the camera and called Kamala Harris this term girl. And even the other people on the panel went, well, that's kind of harsh. And he said it again. Yeah. And I think
this is where we are right now. And I agree with you, but I just really think that she's ready. And like most, say if you had other minorities in this seat, but I think she's ready, because look what we've been going through, especially since the former president has been in office. The bar has been extremely lowered. So I think everyone recognizes the more they feel, just like Nancy said, they don't have any more, what to throw it at their shot. You're going to hear all this rhetoric. I think what I've heard this week, everyone expects it. Everyone feels that she's up for the task, whatever they're going to call her. Everyone has committed to just stay focused and keep marching all the way to November. And we know they're going to throw every ugly thing they can, and everybody's prepared for it, and everybody's going to ignore it.
And that's all they have. That's the other thing. That's all they have at this point. They don't really have, they're going to throw the old California as a hellhole and, blah, blah, blah at her, but they really don't have anything else. No. And I just want to say one thing real fast. And that is when you talk to people, I mean, normal, non-MAGA people, what is the one thing, and you bring up Trump, what is the one thing you hear more often than anything else? Why can't that guy just fucking go away? Right? It's like we have been listening to this crap from him for 8 years, almost a decade now. And I think people are just sick of it. It's like he doesn't have any new, he just comes up with the same crap over and over.
But why does he have 46% of the popular vote still in this country?
That may be true.
You cannot ignore that.
I know you can't ignore it. But at the same time, I really have to think that there's, that we're just done with him. And we're done. I mean, he didn't change anything for these people when he was in office. It was the same. It was the same economy that Barack Obama left him. I mean, and then the pandemic hit, which they fumbled like a whatever. And it was, and here we are. So anyway.
Well, we see the numbers certainly pointing toward, if you want to call it the Harris factor, over $250 million raised since Biden announced that he's withdrawing. The number of new registrations for voting, particularly among young people, is soaring. So there are definitely some things that have happened. And as we're going into the convention, and usually the convention does allow for a bit more of a bump, are we going to be going into Labor Day seeing more of of momentum for her? And I guess along with that question, thoughts about who you think she's going to name in the interim as vice president?
That's going to be really interesting.
I think Mark. I think Mark Kelly is going to be the guy. I mean, I think Josh Shapiro is a great candidate, but he's Jewish, and I think.
Hey, what do you got against him, Allan?
Yeah, people are going to be like, wait a minute. Kamala is married to a Jew, then we got a Jew, and then wait a minute, isn't Secretary of State a Jew and our Attorney General a Jew? It's finally happening right in front of our eyes. I think
the views of our co-founder are not the views of this.
and I think Mark Kelly, although Mark Kelly is married to a Jew, so there used to be the Friday show. I don't know if you remember the comedy show. It was called Jew or Not a Jew. But anyways, I think
I thought you were going to break into that song, the Hanukkah song by.
Or my favorite song, Hanukkah in Santa Monica. But I think Mark Kelly. I think he brings the astronaut, the military service. He's in a swing state. He's got, I think, 6 more years left on his Senate seat. So, and there's a Democratic governor, so that's taken care of. Or I don't know if you can fill the whole 6 years or if you have to have an election after a certain time. But anyways, I think South Carolina, not a swing state, but some people say, oh, we should go south to North Carolina or South Carolina.
Cooper.
It's a possibility.
Andy Bashir.
Andy Bashir. I like Andy Bashir.
I do too.
I do too.
Yeah.
Like you said,
I think this is an embarrassment of riches for Kamala. Yeah. I think what's really important, if they're accusing her of being the DEI pick for Biden, I suggest J.D. Vance was the DUMB pick. And I think that what's critical, and I think that everybody she's considering can do this. She needs to pick somebody who can campaign, fundraise, and kick the bejesus out of J.D. Vance on that debate stage.
Mm-hmm. And so to your other question, I think Labor Day is always seen as sort of the sort of kickoff for campaigns. But, I think we saw some early activity that may be unprecedented. So I think there's a great foundation to build on. There's always been some criticism about, them not really engaging in Michigan until Labor Day, but their ads have been running, offices have been opening, GOTV was happening already. And so I think, and as we said, people have gotten excited. So people, I'm involved with the Grosse Pointe Democratic Club. So we've already seen a decent amount of activity and excitement just before she even announces her candidate. So,
and I haven't seen this much excitement in the local Democratic TV and local campaigns since 2008. And
I agree.
What happened in 2008 was nothing short of inspiring. I think this is greater. I think what's going on now is even more powerful.
Yep.
I think Labor Day. This Labor Day parade should be a fun one. One of the candidates is going to have to show up. I mean, I remember in 2000, I think it was Joe Lieberman who showed up, and I got an opportunity to talk to. Yeah, not a huge fan of Joe Lieberman, but he showed up. And as did Ed Asner and Rob Schneider from SNL.
How long ago was this?
This was 2000.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
2000. And so I think we'll expect either Kamala or the vice president candidate.
Absolutely.
And I suggest she also swing by the jazz festival because that's the same.
Yeah,
she loves jazz.
She's a
big
jazz
fan,
fan, so she can hear some great music and
dancer.
Press
well, that video we saw of her.
As much as you can, Kamala. It's not your.
I would always say if she can't get on stage, people at the jazz festival aren't going to be bothered with
Exactly. But again, I agree with everyone saying she has a deep bench. She has a deep bench, and I think with main consideration is going to be who really appeals to the independents and the moderates. The ones that's on the fence. If I was her, that's what I would go with, trying to pick my VP. But I think she has a deep bench. Again, I also think the momentum is just going to build. You know how it is. We're still in the summer mode. We're right, before the convention, after the convention kickoff, after Labor Day, when people are starting to be focused. I think you're going to see, I'm not going to say a widespread, but you're going to start seeing that gap and her pulling away from him. I think the Labor Day parade is going to be electric, especially since the former president keeps going after the UAW president and everything else. I think he's going to come out forced, and his members will come out in support of him. So I think that parade is going to be epic.
I hope he wears his "Eat the Rich" T-shirt in the parade. That's a good one.
So current polling in Michigan suggests that it's about 42-42 between about 42-42 as a toss-up between Harris and Trump, but an interesting 9.7% polling for Robert Kennedy Jr. Do you think now with Harris in the race that by Labor Day we're going to see independents peel away from Bobby Kennedy Jr. toward
Don't
Harris?
Call him Bobby. He didn't earn the right to be called Bobby.
You're right.
He's Robert Jr., the little egomaniac, brainworm cheating on his wife multiple times. Pestilence of the Kennedy family.
Is that Nancy? Is that a comma after the word junior?
There's it's funny. I've always said that within 3 generations, any great family kind of falls apart and I think he's the proof of that. The big pile is made by grandpa, then there's the sons that, have a fighting chance. But by the 3rd generation, the money and the multiple marriages to models and, actresses and so forth has just done has done its corrosive work and then it's done. So sorry.
Right, Bill.
Saeed, I think that you will see a pull away, though I don't think this will be because of Kamala. It should be, but it won't be. But I do think that the leaking of the tapes of his talking to Trump, that Kennedy's talking to Trump, and the story about him asking Trump for a job in the administration in exchange for an endorsement will begin to eat away at the previously Democratic support for him. I mean, I think it's difficult to tell. I don't want to say anything adverse to Nancy because I don't want her coming after me. But I agree with much.
I'll protect you, Bill.
I'm not sure you're capable, Saeed. But I agree with much of her characterization about what a nut Kennedy tends to be. And as a result, I think it's very difficult to tell who he really will take votes from.
I think the poll today that's come out of the Free Press and I think, or Detroit News and WDIV, is saying that Kennedy is, I mean, it's a dead heat between Kamala and Trump. Kennedy has about 9% of the vote, but among independents, he's about equal with everybody. With Kamala and Trump, he's got about the equal amount taken from there, and so it's a little bit. He's a little bit of a wild card. I mean, to me, the best thing you can say about RFK Jr. is that he's married to Cheryl Hines from Curb Your Enthusiasm.
I don't know. I think that reflects worse on Cheryl Hines.
Yes. Well, she's gone down a few points, but
God, I mean, this. Well,
but just to make, I think Nancy made was very insightful. I mean, Trump is a TV show, and his reruns are getting repetitive, and we're getting tired. I think that Kamala is going to peel off people from, I don't know if Cornel West is on the ballot, but I think she'll peel off people from Cornel West. I think it's going to matter. I think she'll take votes from Kennedy. People are looking for an alternative to these two old men. That was the reality of the whole thing. These two old bumbling men, and that's what they appear to be. You have a vivacious, attractive, articulate woman. And I think people are looking for reason. There's a whole science and anti-intellectualism going on in the Republican Party. I think people think, listen, if you're educated, that can help us. I don't think I think Harris is going to champion basic democratic values, and I think she will draw from a big umbrella. I think she's very appealing.
I think one of the problems, the only one that I really see on this, because I've been ecstatic, and this is not like me at all because I'm not a Democrat, but I think that the situation in Gaza is going to continue to be a problem, and that's the Cornel West people, and those people are not budging. They're not budging at all on what they want. So I think that is something that and she's been great on the subject. She's been calling for a ceasefire.
I think it's quite telling, Barb, that none of the senior leadership received Netanyahu when he came to D.C. Not Biden, not Harris, not Blinken. They sent some low-level officials for the diplomatic protocol. She didn't preside over the Senate during his joint sessions of Congress lecture. Jim Kurtzler.
Were those low-level people like the Speaker of the House? And
we're talking about
really, and they've been talking to the leaders in the Arab American community in Michigan, and they're saying the same thing. It's like that's very nice. But in the meantime, this is still going on. So that would be. I don't
know what they want. Right. Yeah, I don't know what the reasonable ask is. The UK just announced that they will not contest the arrest warrants at the International Criminal Courts against Netanyahu and other Israeli officials. So I think that between the UK and I would imagine the US, they're sending several messages to Netanyahu that enough is enough. Whether that translates among voters or whether it's seen as too nuanced is an open question. Allan.
I feel like the ceasefire talks, they're on the 1 yard line. That everybody in Israel, the IDF, the Mossad, the Shin Bet are all saying we're satisfied with security issues. We're ready to go into the end zone. Netanyahu keeps putting a defense up there to try to keep them from getting in the end zone, and he's getting hammered. I know he was getting hammered here with Kamala and Biden here. I think that when I was at the mosque doing a story about Ramadan and the celebration, how it was being impacted by Israel, there were some people who were saying they'll never vote for Biden, genocide, all that stuff. But there were some people who were saying let's see what happens. I still might vote for him. And I think if there's a ceasefire, which really praying every day it happens, I think that could bring some people back into the fold. I could be wrong, but and the fact that Biden is, I think Biden is, some are calling him Genocide Joe or whatever, but Kamala, I'm not sure she's going to take all the baggage. She'll take some of it, but
right. To answer Ann Farrell's question, do any of you think Trump will fire Vance? I think that would be a fatal error, but I don't think he will. Sorry.
Oh, then I hope he will.
And then Jim
sitting in the crowd, can I comment on what I think people want, people who oppose this issue? Because I feel pretty strongly, but I have family members that are rabid about this. And I think what I think Kamala ought to do is say, look, it's gone too far. There is no security threat anymore. We're not sending any more bombs. We're just not sending any more weapons until there's a ceasefire. That would have I think, a dramatic impact, and I think would bring those voters around. I doubt that it's going to happen, but that's what I would like to see happen.
Mm-hmm.
Darci, did you want to weigh in on this issue? Because I thought you were going to say something, and
I was, and I don't remember what I was going to say now. So
right.
Thanks,
Allan. Why don't we cut to commercial, and maybe Darci can it'll light a match for Darci.
All righty, let me find
neighborhood beautification. That's very important to Detroit. It's very important to block clubs, organizations, and people who live in the community. We got started with 2 lots and a vision of a treehouse center. Because if we can take these blighted lots, Detroit give us grants to be able to do something with them that the community wants, it's a plus, because we're bringing our neighborhoods back to where we want them to be, where they should be, all because I live in Detroit.
This is Alyssa Slotkin, Democrat running for the U.S. Senate. I want to share a story about who, more than anyone, taught me the importance of listening and accountability. It was President Barack Obama. I served in the White House on his national security staff. I got to see him in action, up close, and behind closed doors in the Oval Office. First, he was brilliant, and therefore demanded people really knew their stuff. It was President Obama who grilled me on issues and demanded accountability on what we said and did. That commitment to accountability is exactly the approach I use today, listening to our communities. It's why I've written an opportunity agenda with detailed plans to strengthen Black businesses, increase Black wealth, and provide real opportunities for our youth. Because, as President Obama taught me, you better say what you mean and mean what you say. So that's why I approve this message.
Vote early or on August 6th for Alyssa Slotkin, Democrat for U.S. Senate. Paid for by Alyssa Slotkin.
So after what was yet another pantomime demonstration in Congress, Director of the Secret Service, Kimberly Cheadle, announced that she is stepping down from her role in the aftermath of the Trump assassination plot. I don't know if anybody saw the proceedings, but again, just you wonder what Martians and others must be thinking about the way that the U.S. government works. And along with Washington news, it looks like New Jersey Senator Bob Menendez has announced that he's going to be resigning from the Senate to a very enthusiastic thumbs up from Allan Lengel there.
I mean, Bob Menendez is, I mean, for no better way of describing it, is a piece of shit. I mean, in 2007, he was up for bribery charges in federal court in New Jersey. In 2017, the jury hung. The DOJ decided to subsequently drop the charges. That was 2017 or early 2018. That like January they dropped the charges. That same year, him and his girlfriend and then later wife got involved in all these bribery schemes and international schemes. He's sitting on the foreign relations committee, and he's basically selling his seat and providing information to the Egyptian government, trying to fix this halal contract. I mean, the guy is a dirtbag. I feel sorry for his daughter, Alicia Menendez, who is an MSNBC host on weekends.
Oh, wow.
And his son, who's a Congress member. And I mean, just a disgrace to his children. But anyways, that's
Well,
I'm
yeah,
glad.
just to add to that, the fact that he's, still not contrite and still saying he'll be vindicated, the
Right.
fact that he's dragged this out, which made it so much tougher for the Democrats, so just, so narcissistic and all of that. So, I'm glad that he's not running again. So, but on the Secret Service, just the tone and tenor. First of all, this is my understanding. This is the first time in the history of following an assassination where the director was let go. Like that never happens. So because of now, not saying that she did own up. She said the buck stops with me. Should she have handled the hearing a little bit better? Yes, absolutely. But I think it's more a testimony to just that tone and tenor that they have in these hearings, where it's not going to be a real conversation. It's just going to be histrionics, and I'm sure there's some sexism there as well. So
yeah, you think if she would have been a white male, that a congresswoman would have referred to her as a piece of shit. I mean, that was so offensive.
Again,
the way they dealt with her was so
the
offensive.
DI agents let it happen, and you see that.
Yeah.
Right.
So Bill, you were mentioning about the Palestinian community and particularly with what's happening in Gaza and expectations. China announced that it has brokered an agreement amongst the various Palestinian factions moving toward the potential for a unity government for the Palestinians that would include the Palestinian Authority and Hamas, as well as others. What do you think this says then about American influence in the region and the growing influence of China on the heels of having brokered a détente between Saudi Arabia and Iran?
Well, it's a fascinating question. I mean, unfortunately, when you're not an honest broker, it's hard to have much influence. And unfortunately, the United States has simply not been an honest broker in the Middle East. It's put its finger on the scale at every opportunity and hasn't kept any of the promises that it's made to the Palestinian people. Though, knowing my people, the odds of the Chinese brokered peace accord between these factions of the Palestinians is going to last. I think it's done. That's not going to last very long. Look, part of the problem is if you read this agreement, it calls for democratic elections in the near future. China negotiating a democratic election? Come on. And look, if this is going to happen, and I have serious doubts that it will, but if it's going to happen, it's going to take the international community coming together and saying, we're not going to allow this to occur anymore. We are going to come together, and if you kids can't play right, we're going to divide you in the sandbox and not let you near one another, and enforce a peace for a period of time and allow the Palestinians to build their nation. It hasn't happened, and until that happens, I don't think we stand much of a chance.
By the way, Bill, the word for irony in Mandarin is feng shi. So, but Allan.
And Saeed, you and I spoke about this a little bit yesterday, but I agree with Bill. I know you think there may be more glue to that agreement, but when I was in 2022, when I was in Israel, I took a tour of Bethlehem. There was a Christian tour guide, Christian Palestinian, and he was telling me, he said, if it wasn't for Israel, he says, there would be just all-out war between Fatah and Hamas. I just don't think in the Middle East, grudges don't resolve easily, and not that they can't be resolved, because look, Israel has some type of at least détente with countries like Jordan and Egypt and all that, but I think the hatred between the two groups is so great that, I mean, there were stories, and I don't know how true they were, that during the 2005 election, was it, or 2006 election? Six. There were Hamas was throwing some of the Fatah people off roofs in the Gaza. And so I think there's a lot of tension there. So I mean, it's great. And it is interesting that China is brokering that. I mean, it's hard for, I don't know, it's difficult. I mean, the U.S. has visited Abbas in the West Bank, but they don't really, I mean, you have Hamas's terrorists. So they've had a hard time being, as you say, an honest broker in that. So.
I I don't disagree with my fellow Semitic friend Allan on this. However, I would point out that there are a fair number of Palestinians, and I am amongst them, that says if we could ever get our act together and not fight with the Israelis, they'd implode. Many of the same things that the Palestinians have fighting against them exist within Israel. Yeah. And if they didn't have the Palestinians to fight against, one wonders what would happen to the domestic politics of Israel. Semitic people do have this tendency and hold grudges. We, I think, went to Appalachia and taught some of those.
The Irish have you guys beat, but okay, go ahead.
Yeah, Irish Alzheimer's, right? You forget everything but the grudge.
Right.
Joel, I think you and I are going to have to assert our Britishness yet again. But Allan, I'm glad you weren't in Israel last week and looking to come back on Delta, because you might still be there. Delta is currently under investigation for operations disruptions caused by the IT company CrowdStrike and its glitch in one of its software updates, which created havoc, not just nationally, but globally, particularly with airlines. Delta had a real issue when it came to the software that it uses to assign and dispatch flight crews, but that had nothing to do with a pileup of luggage yet again at Atlanta Hartsfield-Jackson Airport. Allan, I believe you might have had some kind of personal interaction on this.
I did. I was in DC for 10 days. I was supposed to come back Saturday, and right before I went to the airport, the flight was canceled. So at least I didn't go. Got rescheduled for 8:30 p.m. on Sunday night. I got there at 6. As soon as I went through security, it said your flight's been delayed. 11:30, then 12:30, then they canceled. I had to go down. Luckily, I got my luggage. I went back. The people I was staying with, they went to the beach for the week. So I went back to their house. And then they rescheduled me for Tuesday, and that got canceled. And then on Wednesday, they rescheduled me without me asking, without consulting me. I was flying from DC to JFK with a 3-hour layover. It's an hour flight normally, a 3-hour layover. And then, so I got to the airport about 11:30 and got home at 9. The flights were delayed. And interestingly, I was trying to just stay till Saturday. I said, fuck it, I'm going to just, change, but I couldn't get through to the computer. And then the interesting little twist. So I got home Wednesday night. On Thursday, my friends called and said, we got back to the beach early. We got back home early. Instead of coming home Saturday, we're home today. That was yesterday. I said, what's going on? They said, we both have COVID. So luckily I wasn't there.
Wow. I thought they were going to say you left the water running.
Yeah.
Well,
You're gonna.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, please.
I was just going to say that my concern, bigger than the airlines, is CrowdStrike. Like, 8.5 million customers, customers impacted, and they have like half of the Fortune 500 companies. Like, that's terrifying to think about, just how many people are impacted by that directly and indirectly, and just the hold they have over the marketplace.
There's always that push pull in American capitalism, between companies that get bigger and bigger and bigger, and then suddenly you realize, hey, maybe it's better to have a lot of smaller companies than one big company, so that stuff like this doesn't happen.
Take comfort, Darcy, because some of those Fortune 500 companies after this probably aren't so anymore.
Yeah.
So,
I don't use crowdsource, but I do use Microsoft for all my cloud storage. I get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and the first thing I do is sign on, and I saw the blue screen of death. And being the technoid that I am, I turned my computer off. It was terrifying. I mean, a little
Bill,
like mine.
it even don't underestimate your law firm, Bill. But I mean, even at Lifetime Fitness, I went there and there was a blue screen, and it meant that my workout was nullified. So
no way.
Well, before go ahead, Barb.
I was going to say, and none of these companies with these big bloated things, and they're taking on all the other ones, they're not putting money into research and development. They're not putting money into upgrading their systems. They're not insisting that the people that they hire upgrade their systems. They're just, as long as they can get by, as long as they can just barely get by, they're going to keep doing this. And I think hopefully this is a bit of a wake-up call for them. But, you know, we've seen this over and over again. It's time to take a little bit of that money and stop enriching themselves. And
oh, Barb, you're such an alarmist. You're such an alarmist. You probably think these high food prices have something to do with record profits for the grocery store. I mean, come on.
Oh, Connie,
come on, Bill, lay off those eggs.
Well, anybody that pays $7 for a dozen eggs is out of their mind anyway, and doesn't have a shop. But no, but it's, you know, why can't this is they're making all this money. Why does this happen?
Well, last month we had a disruption. I was overseas in the UK, and for 24 hours, my cellular data was completely knocked out because of a third-party provider for international roaming. Took out Verizon, took out AT&T, wow. Took out T-Mobile. I mean, it was rough, and you know, when you can't find a landline anywhere anymore.
Beverly mentions eggs, and I always, you know, when I get to the egg section, I always wonder, like, how many benefits do I want to pay for these chickens? Do I want them to be able to roam? Should they get 2 weeks off on vacation for $8? Should I get, you know, it's like, I always stand there and debate. Okay, cage free.
You gotta analyze it.
I'll pay $2 more for that, whatever. But I'm not putting you on vacation for 2 weeks or something.
Alan, did you ever see the episode of Portlandia where they go to the restaurant with the free range chicken and you get a photograph and a dossier of the chicken?
Yeah, it's a biography. I saw that one. Yeah, we called him David. That was great.
So before we
have fallen. How the not so mighty has fallen.
So before we go to our last segment, I would like to just go ahead and pay note to the passing of a legend. Duke Fakir, the last original member of the Four Tops, passed away at the age of 88. I don't know if any of you had the opportunity to meet him. I met him once on a flight to Amsterdam. The Four Tops were going and performing. I can't think of a nicer guy that I've met from the music industry. He was so affable, just wanted to talk about music. He obviously turned left when I got on the plane, and I turned right. But still, before that, at the gate, wonderful guy and some amazing music memories. So sail on to the next life well, Duke Fakir.
No, you're absolutely right. 2 times, right. Have met him. If you ever ran into him, he would never turn down an opportunity to take a picture, no matter what, if he was eating. Just a really kind individual and loved to talk about music, you know. And so he just, you know, everything is like everyone he met was a friend, it seems like, you know, when you approach him. Really, really
if you grew up in Detroit and you didn't know or hadn't met any of the Four Tops or Temptations, the odds are you probably didn't grow up in Detroit during my era, because they went out of their way.
Alan, do we have a picture of Bill from that era?
No.
Please, let's bring it out. Let's
Nancy, do you want me to show your one photo that you sent me? Or?
No, please don't.
Okay. Well, Barb has a photo.
The music. All right. I love it.
I want to see a picture of Nancy in a bikini.
Comes on, it's just like
I thought
so
you saw it
moving.
last week. Didn't we?
No, but it wasn't live. It was after hours.
We did it live. It was a private showing.
Oh, private.
I just wanted to add about the Four Tops.
Lesko's objecting. He says 2 weeks in a row of that picture.
Darci.
I just wanted to pay homage to the music itself, the lyrics itself, like the way Reach Out starts out.
Yeah,
you know, as soon as you hear that, you can't do anything.
I want to know,
overthinking.
before the last of these Motown people go to their reward. I want a replay of Steve Fishman playing piano for Martha Reeves at the Caucus Club or wherever it was that he was, or they just kind of fell into this wonderful duet of keyboards and her singing. And I just,
wow.
I've never
She plays at Bert's Warehouse on Thursday nights at the open mic. She shows up all the time, and if Fish showed up on a Thursday night, they would give him. Yeah, he would be able to play, and we could see it happen.
Do they have a
Let's
piano
make
there?
it happen.
Bill Munder is the permanent guy, but on the open mic, if you sign up, you can do it.
Let's make it happen. I want to.
Oh my God,
Martha Reeves, Martha Reeves and the Vandellas are another example of that. I had to do a presentation once in front of the Detroit City Council, and Monica Conyers had given me a lot of grief, and Martha Reeves walked up to me and said, don't worry about that. You did a fine job. You turned my vote. And I said, well, thank you. And coming from you, you're such a legend. And the next thing I knew, we were walking arm in arm, and I was in her office, and we sat down for 20 minutes, and it was breathtaking for me. I mean, she is just the sweetest, kindest woman. When you start talking about music, she really lights up.
I got to go drink at Martha with Sue Whitehall, and that was crazy. She put me away with just drinking hurricanes.
Somebody wrote and said that Bill's photo will replace the Rudy, but I don't think that's ever.
Oh no.
You know what? You could get sued, and you could get sued for that comment. Me and Rudy in any connection.
That's not right.
Actually, Bill, I think the fair use doctrine kicks in there. But the fact that you were the only one who ever was the target of Monica Conyers' ire, maybe that's what Martha kind of built on. Darci, the Four Tops cover of the Left Bank's "Walk Away, Renee,"
great one.
Just gets me every time. Alan, let's go to the last segment.
Downtown Detroit, Robert Wells, Schmuck of the Week.
All right, both because of request and because of empathy, Bill, you get to go first.
Well, I've asked Alan to. I've actually have a video for my Schmuck of the Week. I know that's not a usual thing, but Alan, can you play mine?
Fight! 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 We got time. Come on. Hey, we are in the fight for the soul of our nation. We are in a fight for our kids and our grandkids, a fight that we can never imagine. I believe wholeheartedly Donald Trump and Butler County's J.D. Vance are the last chance to save our country politically. I'm afraid if we lose this one, it's going to take a civil war to save the country, and it will be saved. It's the greatest experiment in the history of mankind. And if we come down to a civil war, I'm glad we got people like Schmitty and the Bikers for Trump on our side.
They got the bikers.
That ought to be enough. But let me point out this: if you read Deadline Detroit this week, I wrote a little piece about the fact that Trump and the Republican Party never said anything about the demonstrators that were yelling, "We love Hitler, we love Trump," and singing Sing Heil during their demonstrations in Howell, Michigan. And no one, not Trump, not Vance, not the Republican Party, came out and said anything against this guy.
That was a good piece, Bill.
That's
why. Because it goes against, he believes that if you ever admit to a mistake or renounce something or something, that you're weak, that it shows that you're weak. This is
but even George Lang apologized for going a little too far here. And I think if you watch that and he's not right up there with your schmucks of the week, you ain't paying attention.
But a narcissist never apologizes, never admits they're wrong, and he's
exactly.
He's a class.
They don't see it.
Well, each one of these guys goes to bed dreaming that they could be the next person up on Stone Mountain. So, you know, that tells you something.
I think
right.
Michael may be right. Michael Pappas may be right. I mean, I think that you can make an argument, especially given the fact that he's an elected official.
Yes.
That may well be treasonous.
That's pretty funny.
Wesco says if you
Bikers for
Google
Trump.
bikers for Trump, they're the least intimidating group of people I've ever seen. A bunch of elderly people.
Navy SEALs, they call them. Yeah.
What
Look,
did you say?
the gout and sky.
Oh.
Yeah, Al Qaeda.
The gout and sciatica are real. So, Darcy, who's your schmuck?
My schmuck of the week is Missouri Governor Bailey, who continues to fight the release of the wrongfully convicted at every step of the way.
Definitely.
Good one.
Okay, Joel.
Oh, I'm going to go with Candace Owens, whose praise of Hitler was a little bit upsetting. She was saying, you know, why Hitler gets such a bad name? We're taught to be scared of him. And you know, this is like the Kanye refrain. I think on the far right there is an embrace of Hitler. There's a revisionist that this guy was warm and fuzzy and just a nice guy to be with. It was really offensive. And Candace Owens scares me. I don't understand where she's coming from. I don't understand what she's doing. She's a strange egg, you know.
Yes.
But that comment was just what, you know. Again, it's infuriating for people not to acknowledge reality and history so we can learn from it, and to advocate for a right-wing swing to white Christian nationalism, which is happening, is frightening for all of us.
Mm-hmm.
So she's my schmuck of the week. Yeah,
she's terrible. She's a friend of mine. A friend of my daughter's mother, who is very conservative, and her daughter is not, is always using Candace Owens as like a you know, an olive branch. Oh, it's a black woman. I think you'll really if you just listen to her podcast, it's a black woman, and I think you're really gonna like it. So anyway.
Oh gosh, yeah, really upsetting.
Well, just on that, to me though, that's again just the point you're saying in general. They're not just it's not just being a narcissist that you know, it's also courting, you know, that kind of thought and voters and all of that.
There's a term that, if you have to be stupidly online as often as I am, it's rage farming, which is that you get more clout. You build your profile by saying stupid, provocative shit like that, and then just to make people denounce you, and then that exposure. You know, suddenly you're getting more calls from Newsmax to be a talking head and you know, all that. So anyway,
Beverly.
Of course, it's gonna be J.D. Vance with the little childless cats out here about to take over the world. I mean, really? I mean, if that's not the sexist thing he could have said, not only are you going to be really, you're talking about women, and seriously, it's a degrading remark on a lot of levels, but mainly because, you know, you're not just talking about women who've made a choice. It's our right and our choice to decide whether you want to have children or not. But then you're offending the women who wanted to have children and medically cannot. So it's not, you know, everybody has a choice and something medically. But then you're going to refer to it as cats. You can't even say childless women. You know, it makes us wonder, you know, did your mom, and we wish she probably sometime one of us, well, another choice she could have made, you know, so she had a choice of birth of children. But he is my schmuck of
He also says that that people with children should have more votes, that they should be able to have extra votes because they have more invested in the world.
If you have three children,
I think J.D. Vance may be paid by the Soros family to do this.
It wasn't it. I seem to recall back in the 90s when then Penn Law professor and Supreme Court Justice nominee Lonnie Guinier floated the idea of block voting in a law journal article, just getting slammed. And isn't that really what he's talking about here, is block voting of a sort? Okay.
Yeah, if you have five children, you get 5 extra votes. So
yeah.
And
but seriously, I think he's definitely the schmuck, but I think remarks like that as time go on, as we march in November, that will be one of the catalysts to make these the poll numbers widen a little bit, and not for the Republicans with remarks like that.
That's like saying if I spend $11 at Starbucks, I deserve 2 punches on my card. Okay,
You do.
Barb.
You took my schmuck, but I'm doubling down on it. It's J.D. Vance. A clip has surfaced of his saying that George Soros is going to pay for 747s full of pregnant women to get abortions in, which I think I should get a vacation too, Mr. Soros. I never get my Soros checks for demonstrating. I never get my Soros checks for being an activist. And now I don't get a free ride in a 747 with pregnant girls to get. But the worst part about this is well, there's so many worst parts. I think that the Trump administration is going to very quickly have some buyer's remorse on this guy, because he has really nothing to add to it except insane things to say. And I think he had his nose the deepest in Trump's ass. Mm-hmm. And that's how he got there, is that they weren't able to get him out to nominate anybody else. But I think that he's the absolute worst. And the only problem I have with Kamala not being the vice presidential pick is that she would have just eviscerated him in a debate. I would have loved to see that. I would have watched it over and over again. But J.D. Vance is a double schmuck.
Mm-hmm. Hopefully those pregnant women are flying Delta.
Already delivering in the plane.
Now, Allan, if Delta saved you from possibly getting COVID now. Come on now.
That's right. That's right.
That's right.
It was
right. Of course, what you could have caught on the flight, that's a whole different story.
Another.
But glad you didn't do that. Okay. Nancy.
Well, you guys stole JD. I think it'd be piling on. I had JD at the top of my list, and then I had RFK Jr., and we kind of took care of him. So I'm going to go back on a repeat offender. I was just before we came on, I was looking at my Twitter, and I saw a tweet from Charlie LaDuff trying to shame Alyssa Slotkin, and talking about it's pathetic. I mean, Charlie was once a real reporter, and now he's become a podcast clown. And he refers to her as Baghdad Betty, and he says she refuses to debate. This is the woman, Slotkin. This is a quote. Slotkin is the woman who brought you Iraq, Fallujah through ISIS. She joined the CIA after she graduated from grad school in something like 2003. So, I mean, Fallujah was in 2003, 4, around in there. So I think it's a little bit of a stretch to try to hang that on a junior CIA analyst fresh out of grad school. But, you do you, Charlie.
You clearly don't read any Tom Clancy novels, Nancy, because you would know that it's always the junior analysts that saved the day.
And I have never read one. I haven't read one paragraph of
3 Days of the Condor.
So there you go. Exactly. But it's just he's doing his thing where during the last gubernatorial election where he claimed he was trying to shame Gretchen Whitmer into coming on his show. It's like, are you kidding me? This woman doesn't even talk to the Detroit Free Press, and you think she's going to come down to the Coney Island and climb the stairs and sit on your stupid podcast?
We'll get her on here first.
By the way, the debate was canceled because Hill Harper demanded that there be a black woman questioning on the panel. I think there were black people, but there wasn't a black woman. And so the station canceled it.
Yeah, but let me just be fair about that.
Okay, go ahead.
The station was HPR. I mean, HPR has like a 2-mile radius or something like that.
Okay.
They weren't going to allow for video. It was going to be audio only.
Okay.
HPR was not going to allow the press in. They disputed that, but that's, those are the terms that are agreed upon. And
it wasn't bad hours.
Slotkin could have picked, a number of entities have asked her about debating. So, I'm not going to give her a pass on that. I mean, it was kind of a joke.
What time of day was it going to be? I think it was going to be at noon or something.
I think it was 10 a.m. I think it was 10 a.m.
I thought it was 2 a.m., but okay. After the national anthem.
All right. Well, anyway, that's my schmuck. It's Charlie LaDuff and his, ego.
Barb, speaking of 3 Days of the Condor, the hitman was played by Max von Sydow, who also played Jesus and Ming the Merciless in Flash Gordon. He played Jesus in The Greatest Story Ever Told.
All right.
But that's range.
He was merciless.
That is range. Yeah.
Love it.
Alan.
All right, I'm going to pick Usha Vance, married to J.D. Vance, and who seems like a very smart, progressive woman. She's a Hindu. She's married to a guy who's like a Christian nationalist, and Cheryl Hines for being married to RFK Jr. Shame on both of them. Shonda.
Well, I'm glad that you're not just critical of the Jewish race today. I see you're going after a couple of women as well, Alan. So way to play the field. Again, the views of the co-founder do not reflect the views of anybody else. All right. Well, my Schmuck, I mean, there's so many. I wish we could bank some of these. One has to be every Republican who gave a standing ovation to everything that Netanyahu said at the joint sessions of Congress, especially the lies. But my real schmuck is Tennessee Republican Representative Tim Burchett, who managed to call both Vice President Kamala Harris and outgoing Secret Service Director Kimberly Cheadle, quote, DEI hires, and doubled down on it. So as somebody said before, DEI is sort of the new slur that people feel as though they can say with impunity. And there you go, Tennessee. I'm going to be really interested in this fundraising concert that Beyonce and Taylor Swift are going to be putting on, because the Beehive and Swifties, both of whom have issued death fatwas against me from time to time, when they bring their formidable might, this may be what we talk about on November the 6th as being what changed everything.
It may. It may. You're absolutely correct.
If they have voter registration at that concert,
oh, they will. They will.
They each have hundreds of millions of followers, some of which are adults. No, I think that she's getting a lot of clout there. I mean, this is the new age.
It is.
I can see Trump screaming about how that's cheating.
And they're going to
if you bring these stars in, that's got to be cheating, right?
And they're going to put Ted Nugent and Kid Rock up against it, and that is going to be epic. So
can we start a campaign to force a disassociation of Kid Rock from the name Detroit? Because
Romeo's
as a lifelong Detroiter, that offends the shit out of me. That's
when I'm out of town, and I tell people Kid Rock, I said he grew up in a mansion in Macomb County. They're like, what?
Romeo.
They think he grew up like in a trailer park.
Yeah, he says I'm straight out the trailer. It's like, yeah, give me a fucking break.
Well, he is trailer trash, but that's not where he grew up.
Can we wish Mick Jagger a happy 81st birthday today?
Yes.
Yes.
But Barb, I believe his 37-year-old girlfriend beat us to the punch.
He now has great grandchildren and a 5-year-old son.
Wow.
That's incredible.
Why is he president?
Now that's presidential material.
That's right there.
Sermon.
And he can dance. And he still can dance.
Yes.
Exactly.
But
before you leave, do not forget to get this concert. You got all of us promoters here with Steve and Martha Reeves. We want it.
Yeah.
We want it for sure.
It was
That's an easy one to arrange.
It was serendipitous and beautiful.
Okay.
Yeah, Bill, I believe Mick moves like Jagger. In case you're. But anyway, thank you all for really providing such great insight and humor to another very, very busy week. Thank you, Beverly Watts. Thank you, Darci McConnell. Thank you, Joel Sklar. Thank you, Bill Seikaly. Thank you, Barb Ingalls. Thank you, Nancy Derringer. And as always, thank you. And last word to Allan Lengel.
Drive home safely.
Have a great week, everybody.
Good. Hey,